Justin Trudeau has divided Canadians.
Christy Kirkup with the Globe and Mail. Warren Kinsella was apparently hired to do your party's dirty work in attacking Maxime Bernier with the condition that the contract wouldn't be traced back to the Conservatives. How do you think the public will perceive this?
We don't make comments on vendors that we may or may not have engaged with.
So to that end, did your party hire Mr. Kinsella to attack the Liberals?
As I said, we don't make comments on vendors that our party may or may not have
Did you,
engaged
yes
with.
or no, did you hire Mr. Kinsella?
As a rule, we never make comments on vendors that we may or may not have engaged with.
Bonjour, Monsieur Scheer. Sur Monsieur Kinsella, est-ce que c'est vrai que votre parti
About Mr. Kinsella, is it true that your party hired Mr. Kinsella for seek and destroy Maxime Bernier? Our party offers no comment on contracts that we may or may not have. Is it true? We don't comment on contracts we may or may not have. Why? It's an internal issue to the party. We do not comment if we don't have any. In the same vein, you reproach Mr. Trudeau for not being transparent. Why aren't you transparent on this? Did you hire a firm to destroy Mr. Bernier's party? We don't comment on contracts that we may or may not have.
Good morning, Mr. Scheer. Olivia Stefanovich with CBC News. Have you and/or your party hired Warren Kinsella's firm to do anything this election campaign?
Just as a rule, we don't make comments on vendors that we may or may not have contracts with.
Why can't you be transparent about that?
It's just we don't offer comments on contracts that may or may not exist on vendors that we may or may not have a relationship with.
Ethics to government, you want to be transparent. I find it astounding that you can't answer that basic question about whether you hired this company or not. Why does the great privacy or secrecy about this? Why can't you be transparent with Canadians about this contract?
As a general rule, when it comes to
what's the
party
general rule?
matters,
What is the general rule?
when it relates to party matters, we don't comment on contracts we may or may not have with vendors.
Why?
It's we don't offer comments. We
That's
don't make
not acceptable,
comments
Mr. Scheer.
on contracts that may or may not exist.
You should be transparent about
Well,
this. Why can't you answer this question?
When it comes to internal party matters, when it comes to contracts that may or may not exist, we don't offer comment.
Mr. Scheer, is it ethical for a party in the middle of an election campaign to hire a skullduggery firm to potentially dig up dirt on an opponent? And if the Liberal Party did this, would you be demanding transparency from them?
Well, we're not going to make comments on contracts that may or may not exist.
I'm not asking about a contract. I'm asking about the principle of digging up dirt on your opponent and hiring a firm to do it secretly.
And I said we're not going to make comments on contracts that may or may not exist or with vendors that we may or may not have.
So throughout this campaign, you have talked a lot about Justin Trudeau losing the moral authority to govern. For the last 2 days, you have put out a lot of assumptions without any proof. And today you're not answering a question, which is a very simple one, over whether or not Warren Kinsella was hired by the Conservatives. What do you say to Canadians that you lack the moral authority since you cannot answer these basic questions?
We have always been open and transparent with Canadians as to what we will do as government, and that's exactly what we're going to continue to do. We're going to show Canadians in the next few days exactly which taxes we are going to lower to leave more money in their pockets so they can get ahead. And that is in stark contrast to Justin Trudeau, who has an uncosted platform, who only half of his platform commitments have PBO costing behind it. And he is refusing to come clean onto what types of arrangements he will work with the NDP, which taxes he will increase, or which projects he would kill in order to earn NDP support. I note again, Mr. Singh is talking about cancelling the Trans Mountain pipeline as a condition. A star Liberal candidate is saying that there will never be another pipeline built under a Liberal government. He needs to be open and transparent with Canadians about that before Monday, before Canadians go to the polls. Oh, as a rule, we don't make comments on contracts that may or may not exist or vendors that we may or may not have.
Mr. Scheer, what is the rule that you have here that you can't say which contractors you're working with?
We just don't comment on the contracts that we may or may not have.
Is it a rule you just made up?
We don't make comments on contracts that we may or may not have or vendors that we may or may not have engaged with.
And again, one of my colleagues asked if Liberal leader Justin Trudeau had said that, would you accept that answer?
It's we don't make comment on contracts that we may or may not have. Thanks very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup.
Justin Trudeau has divided Canadians.